I'm saying that these are reports, Director Patel.
No,
and
unlike your baseless reports,
Director
the only person
Patel,
that was slinging margaritas in El Salvador on the taxpayer dollar with a convicted gangbanging was you.
You know, the
only person that ran up a $7,000 bar tab in Washington, D.C. at the lobby bar was you.
What unfolded inside that Senate chamber was supposed to be a routine budget hearing, but 30 seconds in, it turned into the kind of personal meltdown you would expect from a reality star caught in a lie, not the man entrusted with the nation's most sensitive secrets. The FBI director didn't just push back on a senator's question. He all but came across the table, dredging up bizarre photographs from an overseas trip, bringing up old catering receipts, and finally daring his accuser to go under the microscope with him live on camera. That moment when he shrieked, "Let's go, side by side," was the television clip everyone saw. But what the cameras missed, and what we are about to show you, is that his explosion was never about a single allegation in a magazine article. It was the first crack in a meticulously constructed cover that leads straight to a place and a name Washington has spent years trying to scrub from memory.
You have publicly denied those allegations and filed a defamation lawsuit. So today, as you testify before Congress, is it your testimony that those allegations are categorically false?
Unequivocally, categorically false.
We took every second of his two major congressional appearances, cross-referenced his own words from just a few months ago, and uncovered a timeline of promises that turned into threats the instant he got the badge. By the time you hear what happened when a different committee asked him why a certain black book and a tranche of sealed files remain locked away, you will understand that the shouting about margaritas and bar tabs was just a smokescreen. The real story is a man with unchecked power fighting like a cornered animal as the spotlight creeps toward evidence he once swore he would release, evidence that implicates people who can never be named. Stick around, because the hidden connection we found changes everything you thought you knew about who is really pulling the strings at the FBI, and it is a whole lot bigger than one guy's after-hours habits. The hearing had barely begun when the top Democrat on the spending panel looked straight at the FBI director and read back the kind of details that usually stay locked in a human resources file. Your staff had to force entry into your home because you were so badly inebriated and hungover that you could not be reached, he said. That is not rumor mill chatter from a gossip outlet. That is a sitting United States senator putting a sworn law enforcement chief on public notice that his own team allegedly had to break down a door just to find their boss. Instead of addressing the accusation like a man trained in facts and procedure, the director spun around and detonated a dirty bomb of old photos, catering invoices, and a voice so loud the microphones crackled. It was the kind of spectacle you watch through your fingers, and it was all designed to make you forget the question that had just landed. What is the director so terrified of that he would rather scream about margaritas than give a simple answer?
This
so the only individual in this room
that
has been drinking on taxpayer dime during the day
polygraphing
is you.
Director Patel, come on. These are serious allegations that were made against you. They're in a lawsuit that you filed.
You drinking margaritas with a gangbanger is true and on video.
It just goes to show you
running a $7,000 bar tab at the lobby bar has been filed by your own office.
Senator Chris Van Hollen had come prepared. He referenced a detailed magazine investigation, one that painted a picture of erratic behavior, unexplained absences, and repeated episodes that left career agents questioning whether the person at the top was even functional. The director branded the piece a total farce, and then, in a move that would get any local police supervisor suspended, he turned the weapons of his office onto the senator himself. The charge was that Van Hollen once visited a man in a Salvadoran detention center, a man the administration had mistakenly shipped out of the country, and that during that visit local officials placed beverages on the table that could have been cocktails. The director kept shouting the word margaritas as if the rim of a glass was definitive proof that the senator was operating a secret vacation ring on public funds. But as you will see, the real margarita in this story is the one the director has been blending for himself. A cocktail of deflection, performance, and something far more dangerous that we are only now beginning to uncover.
Here, Director
the only thing I know is you're the one drinking margaritas with felons.
Actually, that's a false statement, and I'm asking you about your statements.
I've answered that.
And I'm asking you about a particular report. And
it's not a report.
Testimony. So let me ask you this. Are you willing to take the test, it's called the audit test, that members of our active duty military and others take to determine whether they have a drinking problem?
I'll take any test you're willing to do.
Within minutes, the altercation escalated into a dare that belonged on a daytime talk show. Van Hollen asked the director whether he would submit to the same audit test given to active duty service members to determine whether a person has an overconsumption issue. The director did not hesitate. He shot back. "I'll take any test you're willing to take. Let's go, side by side." The words were meant to project confidence, but on the tape, they sound like a man who knows the game is about to change. Why would the nation's most powerful law enforcement officer agree to a public diagnostic test instead of simply clarifying his schedule and moving on? Because, as we discovered by mapping his public appearances and internal bureau chatter, the director has been operating less like a careful executive and more like a celebrity whose brand is under siege. When a celebrity gets caught in a compromising snapshot, the first move is always to drag the photographer into the frame. That is exactly what happened when the director later posted on social media a $7,000 catering receipt from the senator's campaign, as if buying a holiday dinner for staff was the same as being discovered in a state that required forced entry by one's own security detail. But even that receipt has a backstory that crumbles under the slightest scrutiny. The senator's office immediately clarified that the charge was for an after-hours reception to thank more than 50 staffers, paid entirely from campaign funds, not a single coin from the taxpayer. That explanation took roughly 45 seconds to read. Yet the director leaned on that receipt the way a bricklayer leans on a crumbling wall, hoping nobody notices the cracks. Meanwhile, his own travel history reveals a jaunt to Milan for the Olympic Games that he framed as critical national security work. He told the panel he personally negotiated the transfer of a cybercriminal from Italian custody back to American soil. That sounds impressive until you realize the same man who could not be reached by his own security detail was apparently jet-setting across Europe, snapping photos with foreign officials, and then returning to Washington to file a $250 million lawsuit against the very magazine that first asked whether he was suited for the job. The timeline does not add up, the explanations do not make sense, and when you pull back the curtain on his public calendar, you start to notice that every time a serious question comes his way, he seems to be anywhere but the place where the work is actually done. And while the cameras were fixed on the shouting about tropical drinks and dinner tabs, a quieter but equally disturbing thread was unspooling in the background. Senators and representatives from both parties have spent months trying to figure out whether the director is using loyalty tests inside the bureau to purge anyone who might question his leadership. Multiple news outlets have reported that agents are now being asked during routine polygraph sessions whether they have said anything negative about the director himself. When a high-ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee asked him about these reports, the director did not deny them. He said he would not respond to reporting that contains false information, then refused to say which part was false. It was a classic FBI press office dodge, except it was coming from the very person who once campaigned against that kind of institutional evasiveness. Sources inside the Bureau tell us the mood is one of fear and confusion, with career investigators wondering whether their next assignment will depend not on their casework, but on how enthusiastically they have praised the boss.
Trina, good morning. We saw the FBI director quite upset at this reporting, but in some ways is calling more attention to it by threatening to sue. What can you tell us?
Errol, good morning. This is a wild story that was published by the...
Now, if this were simply a story about a public figure with a messy personal life and a thin skin, we would have stopped here and called it a day. But as we dug deeper into his other recent appearances on Capitol Hill, a far more frightening pattern emerged. The director who gleefully accepted a showdown over a consumption test suddenly became a different person when the topic shifted to a certain financier with a private island, a black book of contacts, and a network of powerful friends who have managed to keep their names out of the headlines for years. The moment the words Jeffrey Epstein entered the room, the director's entire body language shifted. The charm that he deployed against the drinking questions vanished. In its place was a wall of stone, a refusal to engage, and an explosive temper that made the margarita meltdown look like a minor disagreement. And that is where the secret we promised you begins to reveal itself. Several months ago, before he ever sat behind the big desk, the director was a frequent guest on far-right streaming programs. In those appearances, he talked with the kind of swagger that built his entire public persona. One clip that House lawmakers played during a committee session shows him leaning back in a chair while the host asks why the full list of Epstein associates has not been made public. His answer was blunt and laced with bravado. "Simple," he said, "because of who's on that list." In another clip, he looks straight into the lens and tells the audience to put on your big boy pants and let us know who the predators are. Those were not the words of a cautious bureaucrat weighing legal complexities. Those were the words of an insider who claimed he knew exactly where the sensitive material was stored and was ready to expose it the moment he got the authority. Yet now, as the actual director, when asked the very same question by members of the same Congress he once used as a punching bag, he suddenly discovered a passion for court orders he never mentioned before. Representative Jamie Raskin, a Democrat from Maryland, was the one who pressed play on those old clips. He then held up to the director a simple question. "You said the Black Book was under the direct control of the FBI director, so now that you are the director, where is it?" The director's answer was a masterclass in misdirection. He claimed the Black Book had already been released, referring to documents that journalists obtained half a decade ago. Raskin shot back, "No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there, the Black Book under the direct control of the FBI director." From that point, the director's testimony degenerated into a series of legal dodges, each one more threadbare than the last. "We have released more material than anyone else before," he insisted, as if volume excused the fact that the specific records he once promised to unseal remain under lock and key. The Black Book that the director once pledged to open is not a metaphor. It is a physical leather-bound volume containing hundreds of names, addresses, and private contact details, seized by the FBI during a raid on Epstein's Manhattan mansion. Court filings confirm the Bureau has had possession of this item for over 5 years. When the director now claims the book has already been released, he is counting on the public not knowing the difference between the heavily redacted pages that surfaced online years ago and the unredacted original that could finally connect the dots between the financier's social circle and the crimes his victims have described.
Are you going to cover up?
No,
Are you going to continue to
recognize
cover
the gentleman
up
from
for the
New Jersey
rich
for
and
his 5 minutes?
powerful men, including those that might be on this committee?
I can yell too, Mr. Chairman, but I don't want to yell above this.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. I appreciate the gentlelady yielding back.
Mr.
At the same hearing, Representative Daniel Goldman, a former federal prosecutor who actually knows how court orders work, walked the director into a trap that peeled away the excuses. Goldman asked which specific laws or court orders prevent the release of the full files. The director could not name one. Instead, he started talking about a limited scope investigation from 2006 and 2007, years when a completely different party controlled the White House. When Goldman pressed further on why FBI interview reports with Epstein participants have not been released, the director replied, "Do you know how court orders work, sir?" And Goldman, refusing to back down, delivered the line that became an instant headline. "Actually, Mr. Patel, I was a prosecutor, a real prosecutor, for years." The director's retort, asking whether he was a fake prosecutor, did nothing to answer the question. It only demonstrated that whenever a skilled interrogator gets too close to the truth, the man in the big chair abandons the playbook and starts swinging. The fireworks did not stop there. Senator Adam Schiff of California got into a screaming match with the director over the administration's quiet decision to move Epstein's convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, to a lower security facility after she sat for an interview. The director insisted that decision came from the Bureau of Prisons, not from any higher official. But Schiff, who spent years investigating foreign interference, knows a bureaucratic dodge when he hears one. He cut through the noise and the director erupted, calling Schiff a liar and a disgrace and labeling him a political buffoon. The chairman had to bang his gavel and yell at both of them to stop. In that moment, the director was not acting like the head of a disciplined investigative agency. He was acting like a commenter on a social media thread who has run out of arguments and reached for the caps lock. Schiff later summed it up with a devastating observation. "You can make an internet troll the FBI director, but he will always be nothing more than an internet troll." Another explosive confrontation erupted with Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, who bluntly told the director he was failing as a leader, that he had fired experienced agents, and that he was making the country weaker and less safe. Booker predicted the director would not last long in the role. The director's response was not to list accomplishments or explain the strategic reasoning behind his personnel moves. It was to accuse Booker of dividing the country and to tell him his time was up, as if the Senate's clock runs on the director's command. Booker shot back, "You don't tell me my time is over? The people of New Jersey tell me what my time is." The exchange was a perfect mirror of the Van Hollen clash. A man who cannot tolerate being challenged, who interprets every oversight question as a personal insult, and who has surrounded himself with a bubble so thick that even routine democratic accountability feels like an ambush.
My job as the FBI director is to
Is the
invite all
answer yes or
investigative
no
leads.
to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and
Any insinuation by you or any
What
people
is
on
the
your
an-
side that I am not manhunting child predators and traffickers, just look at the
Mr.
stats.
Patel,
And you talk
Mr.
about...
As the Epstein questioning intensified, another Republican, Representative Thomas Massie, did something unexpected. He joined the Democrats in demanding answers. Massie had filed a discharge petition to force the release of the Epstein files, and he directly challenged the director's claim that there was no credible information linking Epstein to anyone beyond himself. Massie pointed out that alleged victims had given interviews to the FBI detailing accusations against at least 20 men. The director deflected again, saying it was not his personal assertion, but the assessment of 3 separate U.S. attorneys from different administrations. It was a carefully crafted pivot, but a pivot nonetheless. If the file really contained nothing, if the claims were truly baseless, why not open the vault and let the public judge? The answer, as we are about to show you, lies not in any courtroom order, but in a birthday note from 2003 that bears the signature of a man who is now the most powerful person on Earth. Representative Ted Lieu of California then zeroed in on the exact same tension. He asked the director whether the Epstein files included a certain 2003 birthday doodle of a bare figure, one bearing the signature of Donald Trump and uncovered by a major financial newspaper. The director seized on the question to blame the financier's estate for withholding materials, claiming the estate was under no obligation to provide them even if the FBI issued a subpoena. Lieu, visibly frustrated, shot back, "You're the frickin' FBI. You can subpoena the information from the estate, and you better do that." But the director never did, and he has never explained why. That was the moment the mask slipped completely. A man who once said the only barrier to transparency was who's on that list now refused to use the full power of his own agency to pry loose a signature that connects his boss to the central figure of the country's most notorious trafficking ring. And consider the timeline. While all this was unfolding, the House Oversight Committee received tens of thousands of records from the Department of Justice and made a headline-grabbing announcement that it was receiving additional materials from the Epstein estate. but a review of those documents showed they were largely public court filings, previously released flight logs, and transcripts that journalists had already obtained years ago. It was a theatrical release designed to create the illusion of transparency, while hiding the one set of records that could actually bring down the powerful, the sealed grand jury transcripts, the unredacted flight manifests, and the infamous video evidence that the director himself described as containing material too sensitive to broadcast. When pressed on why the FBI had not even subpoenaed the tapes of journalist Michael Wolff, who claims to have hours of interviews that could crack the case open, the director claimed he did not know whether the FBI had taken that basic step. Not knowing is either an admission of staggering negligence or a cover for something far worse.
Declined.
Will you release all of them, or at least as many as you can?
We will release everything we are legally permitted to do so. We are continuing to work with the House on the subpoena request. We have substantially complied with it, but we will continue to release whatever we are legally permitted to do so.
Hidden among the crumbs the committee did release is a document that has barely been discussed on cable news, but that changes everything. A letter written for the financier's 50th birthday celebration, reportedly signed by Donald Trump. Let us be clear. A signature on a party doodle is not a conviction. It is not even a charge. But it is a thread. And when you give the FBI director's job to a man who once said, the only barrier to releasing the Epstein list is who's on it, that thread starts to look a lot like a rope that could strangle a political career. The director has repeatedly insisted that the administration has released everything it is legally allowed to release. Yet a federal judge overseeing the Epstein grand jury transcripts recently ruled that the government is the logical party to disclose the files. That means the very legal hurdles the director keeps pointing to might not actually exist in the way he describes. It means a different branch of government is waiting for him to act, and he is choosing not to. The director's defenders will tell you he is just following the law, but that argument collapses when you listen to his own words from before he got the badge. In those 2023 appearances, he did not mention court orders or legal guardrails. He spoke about a list that was being protected because the names on it were too powerful to expose. He now claims those prior statements were merely his personal opinion and that he must follow the protocols of the agency. But those protocols are not written in stone. They are enforced by the director, and the director has chosen to wield them like a shield. The same person who promised to put on his big boy pants and name the predators has instead been on a months-long purge of senior agents, replacing them with loyalists whose main qualification appears to be a willingness to say yes to whatever the White House demands. Multiple whistleblowers have come forward to describe a bureau that is being hollowed out from the inside. Senior investigators with decades of experience in counterintelligence and public corruption have been escorted out of the building, their cases frozen or reassigned to allies who have never run a complex investigation in their lives. The timing of these purges is no coincidence. Some of the agents who were removed had been quietly compiling evidence that could finally lead to charges against previously untouchable figures connected to the Epstein network. By removing them, the director has effectively shut down the internal machinery that could independently force the release of documents he now claims are out of his control.
Cash, excuse me for interrupting, but I'm going to run out of time. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
This is the hidden connection that makes sense of all the chaos. The same director who is accused of being so inebriated that his staff could not locate him is the man who holds physical custody of witness interviews, travel logs, surveillance footage, and the infamous black book that could identify every powerful figure who ever visited a certain island. If he were removed tomorrow, his successor would inherit those very files, and the momentum for full disclosure might finally overtake the stonewalling. That is why he fights each hearing as if it is his last, because every moment he remains in the chair is another moment the files stay locked. The attacks on Van Hollen, the screaming matches with Schiff and Booker, the late-night social media posts. They are not the behavior of a steady chief. They are the behavior of a gatekeeper who would rather torch his own reputation than risk the safe cracking open. As we close this investigation, we want to leave you with a set of questions that now demand answers. If the director truly has nothing to hide about his own conduct, why did he refuse to answer whether his security detail ever had difficulty waking him, instead offering to take a test on national television as a distraction? If he genuinely wants the public to know the full truth about the Epstein network, why has he not used the subpoena power of the FBI to demand the unreleased tapes and materials from the financier's estate? And if the administration believes in law and order, why was the convicted accomplice of a known trafficker of minors quietly moved to a softer facility right after she cooperated with investigators? These are not partisan talking points. They are the threads of a cover-up that stretches from a Capitol Hill hearing room all the way to a tropical island where the powerful once felt untouchable.
Your July memo says you uncovered more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence, but that you had decided no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That is a quote. I think what happened, Mr. Patel, is that suddenly you discovered that Donald Trump's name was all over these files, and you started a giant
Tell us in the comments what you think will happen next. Will the director survive the next oversight hearing, or will more lawmakers demand his removal? Do you believe the full Epstein files will ever see daylight, or is the real list too explosive for any administration to release? Hit that like if you agree that no one, not even the man running the FBI, should be able to scream over a senator's question and get away with it. And if you want to stay ahead of the next chapter in this unraveling saga, subscribe and ring the bell, because the next time he steps into a committee room, we'll be watching every frame.